ध्यायेत् शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्दे क्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानं रसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणीश्वरं गुरुवरं योगासनध्यासितं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् ह्यहमहमिति साक्षादात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वतामच्युतव पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। Namo Ramana. In this Tuesday Self-Enquiry Atma Vichara session from Ramanacentre Center for Learning, Bengaluru, we have been reading the reminiscences of Sri Mahakrishna Swami from the book Years in the Presence of Ramana, My Master. Sri Mahakrishna Swami stayed in Ramanashramam and then later went to Brazil to start a Ramana center over there as per the directions of Bhagavan. And his reminiscences was brought out by the center and it has been edited by our founder president Sri A.R. Natarajan ji. In his reminiscences, Mahakrishna Swami is talking about Bhagavan's techniques of teaching, how Bhagavan would adopt various techniques to teach the truth. In this week, we continue to read about it. Sri Ramana never stimulated any special manifestation for himself. Bhagavan Sri Ramana did not approve of distinctions during the work, during the meals, or in any other activity. He never made a separation between himself and the others. However, the Hindu people are very conservative in their habits and insisted on standing when Sri Ramana entered the hall or left it. Some people imposed on themselves the duty of offering delicacies or rare fruits since they did not perceive that they were acting against the teaching. Ramana adverted them. Why all this demonstration of respect and devotion? So here we see Mahakrishna Swami capturing here how the self, which even right now doesn't differentiate between a good thought, a bad thought, a wonderful idea, or a bad idea, or any event that is happening which is conducive or not so conducive. we see the pure being consciousness being equally lighting everything, giving its conscious attention to everything and giving its existence to all those things equally in whatsoever. So we see Bhagavan, which is, we can say Bhagavan was the manifestation of the self in the human form. And we can see that since there is no entity like mind, intellect, ego and all in that truth, there is no such discrimination between that body or any other body which would come to him. It would be equally, Bhagavan would be available equally. So we see that there was no separation. Mahakrishna Swami says there was no separation between him or others. It was not like the no separation was enacted with some conscious idea that I need to show that way, like how we can do, probably pay it out in a drama. If I am given a role, so as a yogi, and then I have to act as though I am equal to everybody, then I am very consciously keeping that thought in mind and acting. And I may be my usual stuff after the acting is over. I may like somebody, I may not like somebody. But that is not the way it was, is what Sri Mahakrishna Swami is talking about. Because the self has absolutely no discrimination. Because it is the only thing which is. There is nothing apart from it. So we can see here that it has been revealed that Bhagavan's natural state was that of equipoised on everything. Though we can see the other contrast when devotees who still are identified with the body-mind complex, a sense of division, though self alone is, when we are identified with the body-mind, as we ourselves being a body-mind, invariably the division will crop up. Even in the most simplest of mundane act, the division will be the substratum on which we will be acting. So the division will crop up very easily. When people say you, the identification will be with the body. It will be identification with the name. It will become so much, the division, the I being the first and the foremost thing. Moment anybody talks of I, you, me, there will be a sense of division and naturally felt by all of us. And we will have a very clear identification. And even when we are understanding their statements, there will be clear identification that I am the body, somebody else is something else, and these acts are all different. Those will be very, very natural to us because the ignorance will be there, the ego will be there. So here we are saying that that has been brought out, that the Hindus, being the conservative, had the habit to stand up and get down, stand up until Bhagavan entered or and all of that. And Bhagavan would say, why would, and when they would try to impress, try to bring some rare fruits for Bhagavan, thinking that it would be very much liked. And in a way, the attention to them, having been the source of people who bring it, will be there in the lurking behind the mind. So Bhagavan would always say, let go all of this. And therefore he would be advert to them, he says. He's not advert to them in as a self. He's advert to them with those concepts that they are still holding on to, not understanding the actual teaching of Bhagavan. The actual teaching of Bhagavan is that you are the self here and now, and in your natural state, there is no differentiation between good, bad, nice and not nice, if you see your own nature as the pure being, as the pure consciousness, here and now you recognize no thought has touched you. No amount of doings has altered your consciousness or your being. So here and now, you are natural, you are so naturally the self, and that alone is being experienced. Even when you are experiencing a thought, you are experiencing the existence of the thought, which is your own existence. You are conscious of the thought, which is your own consciousness. So at all times, it is only the self experiencing itself, but owning to these names and forms and different divisions created, which is all ignorance. When we hold on to those ignorance, then we do all these mischiefs. We do all these wrong things, trying to impress somebody, trying to show respect and not do all these various things. And Bhagavan was through advertly scolding or telling us or showing us what mistake we were doing. He was reminding of the teaching. He was reminding of that truth that we are always the self. And so he would say, why all this demonstration of respect and devotion? Simply be the way you are. So this is one way of teaching. So when we can do that for ourselves too. Whenever we do these kind of acts, whenever we go out of the way to do something, impress somebody or something, and whenever we recognize, why am I doing this? And owing to what am I doing? Am I owing myself to be this body, this name? And am I doing it to give more fame for this name and body? Whenever I recognize it, it is all the grace of Bhagavan kind of advertly reminding us of what we are. And then and there, we can have a course correction. That's how we can see. And when we were in the presence of Bhagavan would do it by advertly telling us. And when we right now think that Bhagavan is not there, when we are doing these acts, we know the self within, which is really Bhagavan, reminds us of it. Why are you trying to act this way? Why are you trying to do this way? And then and there, we can do the correction and we can get back to our real nature. That is exactly how it was in Ramanashramam, where Mahakrishna Swami records. And that's how even it is right now with all of us, because Bhagavan is within, and therefore this body is nothing less of the Ramanashramam that we can think of. So there is no second way. The Ramanashramam, it is Ramanashramam only. Further going on, Mahakrishna Swami records, the external homage could be accepted in the best of cases, in a gentle manner. For Bhagavan Sri Ramana was kind to all, but he never let those external gestures become more important than the reception of the teaching he transmitted. By the constant practice of meditation, it is possible to purify oneself, recognize the ego, unmask and annihilate it. But people burn camphor and hope to become purified by this. Could it be that they really believe that they can gain something without working for self-elaboration? They do not want to submit themselves to the divine will, but they want the divine will to bend before them. Some show their offerings to the master. What do they have to offer? And Sri R. Natarajan ji highlights this. What do we have to offer? The only real offering is to annihilate the thinking mind and remain natural according to the divine essence. So in this paragraph, Mahakrishna Swami is reminding us that yes, owing to our natural tendencies, owing to our habits, we may want to do some offerings, we may want to do something. So whenever we do that, if it is gentle, then it is okay. But if you go overboard in doing it and want to project our ability to do or our privilege to do or something like that, that is not acceptable. If it is very gentle, very humbly, with a love, with affection, when anybody offered anything to Bhagavan in a very gentle manner, he would not reprimand, he would accept it. So that is okay. Whenever it is humbly done, it was okay. But when people went overboard in their gestures, he would not accept it. So he goes on to say that we can recognize these things happening with us. Whenever we go overboard, if we are conscious of it, and that is what self-enquiry does. The more and more we inquire to whom is this, who am I, the more and more we will become conscious of getting overboard or getting associated with a body and a mind. It becomes very natural, kind of an extension of us to recognize it. And that is the beauty of this meditation or the practice of self-enquiry. He says, it purifies us and makes us recognize that when the ego raises its hood, and to annihilate it and to get away from it by the act of recognizing the truth. To whom is this? Me. Who am I? By the question, who am I? We get back to our real nature. And so Mahakrishna Swami says that Bhagavan was more happy when the teaching was practiced more than the external gestures that we would do. And he goes on to say the only real offering is to annihilate the thinking mind and remain natural. The natural truth of ourself is pure being consciousness, which is bereft of all thoughts. And we can see that in the deep sleep, that there is no thoughts. And it is not that the pure being consciousness, which is aware in the deep sleep that there is no thought, is disturbed. What happened to all my thoughts? What happened to my mind or body? We don't see that our own real nature is the least bit disturbed with the absence or the presence of the thought. So it is important to recognize that when we annihilate all the thinking mind, that is, we stop attending to the thinking mind, and if we remain silent, then the natural truth which alone is will reveal itself. And then let the body and the mind act according to the divine scheme of things. Let them play its role. But one recognizes one's real nature here and now is nothing short of that pure being consciousness and nothing short of being naturally equipoised at all situation. So that is the teaching of Bhagavan. And for us to consciously recognize that natural state of ours, Bhagavan has given us Atma Vichara. He has given us to every time when we get carried away by some object, by a sense of difference, he asks us to inquire to whom is this? Who am I? So that we can consciously return back to our real nature here and now. And by repeated practice, it becomes very easy to recognize when the mind moves or when the attention gets entangled with the mind, so that we can disengage with it and return back to our natural state. And by repeated practice, we let the divine run whatever it needs to run through the body, mind, and all these senses. So Bhagavan here has given us Atma Vichara to consciously practice the surrender to the divine will. And by repeatedly practicing it, then we recognize that the divine will alone is functioning, and there is nothing that one needs to do. One needs to use the mind or do anything with it. It will all be taken care by that one single truth, which alone is Bhagavan's immense grace, with which alone we have come to this most direct path. For the next 20 minutes, let us practice Atma Vichara. Revatima, can you please help me keep time? Thank you. Namo Ramana. Thank you, dear Simha. Namo Ramana Akka.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, in this part of today's satsang, we are meditating on the verses of Ramana Gita and Bhagavan's guidance on our practice of self-enquiry through the answers which he has given in Ramana Gita to various seekers of truth on different aspects of spiritual practice or sadhana. We are now meditating on chapter 16, which is on bhakti, and it is to be understood that the questioner was Ganapati Muni, and Bhagavan has been answering and speaking about bhakti. And we were on the verses of, initially though Bhagavan has said that the real definition of bhakti is devotion which flows unbroken like a stream of oil. And then Bhagavan says that there what happens is that one becomes one with the Supreme. But then he goes on to say that though there is a difference, though one sees God as apart from oneself, when one goes on praying through the love for God, when one turns to God continuously, then one merges in God and abides as a self. And he says that if one has love for God, which is constantly flowing like this stream of oil, if one is not interested in attaining self-knowledge also, it will automatically lead, such bhakti will automatically lead to the self. But what if one is not even having love for God, not pure love just for God, but is actually turning to God because of certain difficulties that one is facing? So that seems to be the question of Muni. And there Bhagavan answers, Parichinnam yadatmanam swalpajñam chapi manyate bhakto vishayi rupena tada klesha nivrittaye vyapakam paramam vastu bhajate devata dhiya bhajamscha devata buddhya tadevante samashnute. Even if one has limited intelligence, swalpajñam chapi manyate, parichinnam, having separated oneself from God and having been afflicted for some reason, when one prays to the paramam vastu bhajate, when one prays to that paramam vastu, which is vyapakam, which is all pervading, ultimately one attains that very supreme, says Bhagavan. Even though one is praying actually for the end of suffering. Actually, if we look at our practice, any practice, even our practice of self-enquiry, it is only to put an end to our suffering. Because we are, in one sense, we have become fed up of this kind of sukha or joy, which is cyclical, which is followed eternally by sorrow, or in which one is constantly plagued by fear of sorrow. One may not be actually suffering, but there may be a fear. What if something happens to my dear ones? What if something good is there today which will go away tomorrow? What if something else. I will lose this, I will lose that, something may go wrong. This is an underlying fear, there's an underlying discomfort in our lives. So long as the ego is the center from which we are functioning. So there is a klesha, there is a suffering for which one is turning to the Sadguru, turning to Bhagavan, saying, please free me from this. Allow me to do my sadhana and free me from this suffering. This is the ultimate prayer for freedom from suffering. Freedom from the suffering which is inflicted by the very presence, however subtle it may be, however good it may be, of the ego. If the ego is the center from which we are functioning, which is the center, meaning if the I am the body thought is the center from which we are functioning, there is bound to be suffering. And a prayer for release from that suffering is what we put to Bhagavan every time we turn within in self-enquiry. We are doing so in the hope of finding the truth, in ridding ourselves of this suffering. But even let us suppose, even that Bhagavan would say is Swalpajna, because he says, where is the question of even wanting to turn back to the self? Where is the question of saying, I am unable to experience the self? He says, it is like saying, it is like standing in the Ganges and saying, I am thirsty, I am thirsty. And then he says, no, it is not even like that. It is like a fish in the Ganges saying, I am thirsty. And then he again corrects himself, says, no, it is not even like that. It is like Ganga herself saying, I am thirsty. So where is the klesha? Where is sorrow? Bhagavan would not acknowledge the presence of any separation at all. He says, even to think that I have to attain oneness is not the true understanding, because one is ever abiding, one is the self, not even abiding in the self, one is the self. It cannot be otherwise. To think that one is not the self, to think that one has to search for the self, is like the story he gives, he says, of the 10 fools who just thought one of them is lost and kept searching until a wise wayfarer could point out that all the 10 of them are actually there. So who is the one lost? Who is the one to be found? So Bhagavan says there is no room at all for klesha, for suffering. But we suffer from various causes, from various difficulties in our life. And truly, of course, we suffer because of the rise of desire, the rise of thought, the rise of the identity. So when we do this and when we turn to Him in prayer, whether it is to overcome the limitation of identity as a whole, or to be rid of any of the small concerns that we have to face from day to day, because to whom can we turn other than to Bhagavan if we are in pain? Whatever difficulties we are facing, which would come up in life very naturally, that's the course of life, there will be ups and downs. So whenever we face any difficulty, to whom should we turn other than to Bhagavan? Who is there other than Him who can solve any question or any issue for us? And when He is available, why should we turn to anyone else? Sadhu Om Swami says in his composition, when the one who is carrying the sun and the moon and the entire universe on his shoulders is available for me, is so dearly available to me, he's available as a father to me, why should I beg for alms from anybody else in this world? So whatever we want to seek, we seek from that Supreme alone. And in all compassion, that Supreme gives us relief from our pain, but also gives itself to us, says Bhagavan. So, tadeva ante samashnite. In the end, it takes time. If one is asking for A, B, and C, only after that A, B, C is fulfilled, then we can experience the Supreme. The Supreme is giving itself to us all the time. But we feel distant from the Supreme because our attention is on objects. And so long as our attention is on objects and we are seeking any object whatsoever, we cannot experience the Supreme Self that is ever shining, that is ever giving itself, which is ever revealed. So Bhagavan says, Tadeva ante samashnute. Ultimately, that alone will be reached. Even if we are practicing dualistic love for the Supreme, even to support our dualistic life, Bhagavan in all grace says, ultimately you will reach the same state. So, this is what he says about dualistic sadhana, which is bhakti, where one is not seeking the self consciously, one is not even seeking the Godhead consciously, but because of some relationship with God, any form of relationship with God, it ultimately leads us to this. That's why Bhagavan says in great compassion, when this is the case of any form of connection with God, if you turn directly to the source, if you try to turn directly to the source, how much more easily the self will become available, how much more eagerly the self will reveal itself, says Bhagavan. So even he says, even if you stop one thought with the question, who am I? It will go a long way, because the self is so loving. Even if we don't seek it, even if we are seeking some gift from it, it still gives of itself. So one of the points that come to us when we look into these verses is the love, the infinite love of the self that is ever ready to give itself. And the assurance that it is there for us. It is always there for us. But a little effort from our side also will take us a long way. And that little effort, if we can make in terms of self-enquiry itself, that will take us a long way. If we really turn within with the eagerness, with that klesha, feeling that klesha, that I have lost my true nature, I have lost that great treasure. Should I not find out for myself what my true nature is? With that yearning, when we turn within, then there is absolute certainty that the self will give of itself to us. Tadeva ante samashnute. So even in our practice of self-enquiry, a lot of patience is required. We have to have faith that the Supreme will fulfill its purpose. We should not be agitated about failures in our own sadhana. On the other hand, we have the freedom to pray, as Bhagavan teaches us in Aksharamanammalai, Dheeramil ahatil tedi undanai yan tinba utre arul arunachal. Without the courage, Dheeramil, I am having the klesha, I'm undergoing agony, anxiety, fear. I don't have the courage to turn within fully and dive right into the heart of the self. So, Dhiramil, and I'm searching with a weak heart, with a weak mind that is afraid, that is anxious, that would like to go out at the least opportunity or the least excuse. தேடி உந்தனை யான் திரும்ப விட்டுறேன். So I am not able to find you. I am weak, O Lord. Arul. So please give me your grace so that I will have the courage to turn within fully and abide in the self. So we can pray to Bhagavan thus, even though we feel that we are separated, even though we feel that we do not have the courage, we do not have the ability to stay in the self, we can pray in this way, and this prayer will also be surely answered, and the division will also be erased, says Bhagavan, giving his grace to us at every moment. Om Namo Bhagavate Suraya.
Ramanacentre. Apara Satchit Kavarirashi. Yes, Yormatram Bhuvanam Samastam Guhahitam Tam Ramanam Gabhiram Chintavihiram Hrudi Chintayami Chintavihiram Hrudi Chintayami. Namo Ramanacentre.